Everyone knows the government is corrupt, completely bought and paid for by big corporations, and that a small number of wealthy elites control the world. What you don't know is that some of those elites aren't reptilians like you believe, but actual human beings who listen to music. What do I know? Maybe they're reptilians who listen to music. Either way, the rich and powerful listen to music just like you and me. Well, maybe not you or me. I don't know what it's like to listen to music through the custom speakers of a Rolls-Royce, and neither do you. Must be nice. I do, however, know what it's like to listen to music through the homemade system in my 2009 Nissan that I built from items I bought at Walmart for under $1,000. You also know what it's like to listen to my system, because that motherfucker has 2,000 watts of sub-bass you can feel from 100 yards and still hear clearly at 1,000. The rich and powerful might be better at life than you, but their taste in music is no better than your own. They listen to the same crap you do, but they do it in their mansions, private jets, and on private islands. You listen to music in your Honda Civic, your studio apartment, and at your shitty job where you work your ass off day after day, making some rich and powerful CEO dickhead even more rich and powerful. Speaking of dickhead CEOs, that brings us to our first group of elites. Let's see what pharmaceutical company CEOs and high-ranking executives are listening to. Number 1, Big Pharma execs. Everybody loves drugs. Hell, I'm on like 8 of them right now. And everybody knows that nothing goes better with drugs than sex and rock and roll. Well, besides more drugs. But Big Pharma execs don't listen to rock and roll. Rock is for us common folk. You know, the people who take the drugs and make the drugs. The assholes who sell and profit from the drugs listen exclusively to EDM. Big Pharma execs live for 2 things: to pump you full of expensive drugs and to pump their fists to bad EDM made by some 16-year-old kid on a MacBook who's never picked up an instrument in his entire fucking life. The only thing that gets the blood of Big Pharma execs pumping faster than profiting off the sick and injured is the pumping bass of a sick EDM song. If you're the type of person who only listens to good music, you might not even know what EDM is. EDM stands for Electronic Dance Music, aka eardrum shattering music. EDM is filled with endless drum machines that result in energetic dance floor movement, which is what makes it DEM, drug executive music. These assholes can't stop moving. They move as much money as possible out of your pockets and into their own. They continuously move back and forth between jobs at the drug company and the FDA, you know, the federal agency that's supposed to regulate drug companies. And no conflict of interest there. And they move their wildly overpaid asses to the sound of pounding 808s, a sound that gives you a pounding headache for which Big Pharma just happens to have a treatment, one that costs $1,000 a month, works less than a third of the time, and comes with an endless list of side effects. And although 99% of the research done to bring that drug to market was paid for with taxpayer dollars, 100% of the profit goes into the hands of Big Pharma execs and shareholders. It'd be like if you and your friends worked your asses off for years writing an album's worth of amazing songs, and then I swooped in, took those songs, recorded them, renamed them, released them as an album, and then sold you guys that album back at $1,000 a pop. If I did that, you'd all be fucking pissed. But none of you even bat an eye when Big Pharma does it. You just laugh it off. Although, in your defense, that might be involuntary laughter, one of the many side effects of the many drugs you're on. But don't worry. Big Pharma's got another side effect-riddled drug to treat your involuntary laughter. And that has every Big Pharma exec laughing his ass off as he's blasting EDM on the way to the bank in his Lamborghini. Yep, that's right. Motherfucker's so rich, he somehow got a Lambo. Big Pharma execs care about your health about as much as DJs who play EDM care about your hearing. Not even a little bit. Like Pharma execs say behind closed doors, fuck their health, get their wealth. Interestingly enough, this next group has a similar motto that they regularly chant while being all tweaked out on drugs from Big Pharma. Number 2, hedge fund managers and other Wall Street scum. When you think of billionaires, you probably think of headphone-wearing doctors and tech company founders. But most new billionaires are made not by creating something new and innovative that enhances the lives of everyday people, but by manipulating numbers in such a way that adds nothing of value to society whatsoever. I'm talking, of course, about Wall Street and basically any kind of financial executive. These guys, and they are mostly guys, listen to a couple types of music. Like high school, Wall Street's got its nerds and its jocks. The nerds mostly listen to math rock, although they tend not to listen to music at work because all the weird time signatures fuck with all the counting they have to do while crunching numbers. But after a long Adderall-fueled 14-hour day, These finance nerds like to go home to their empty luxury condos and rock out to some Rush or maybe some Tool, because those are the only two even remotely math rock bands they listen to, since they're the only ones they know about because they don't have time to discover new music or friends to recommend new bands because they work 100 hours a week. But when they retire a billionaire at 40, they'll have plenty of time to discover all the terrible math rock bands out there. Wall Street jocks are a different breed altogether. They share the same level of greed as the nerds, but the similarities end there. While Wall Street nerds take their Adderall in the morning exactly as prescribed to help them focus throughout the day, Wall Street jocks spend all day and night crushing up Adderall and snorting it off each other's fully erect cocks behind boardroom doors because, well, that's just what they do. And since the closest thing to counting they have to do is slapping 5, something they do every 5 minutes, they can blast music all day long. Finance jocks pride themselves on how fast they can separate you from your money, which also happens to be how they like their music. Fast as fuck. While all Wall Street jocks are on coke or at least meth light, the music they listen to sounds like it's on actual meth. Speed metal is a favorite amongst the heavy metal jocks of Wall Street. These are the guys who listened to shitty 80s metal in high school and ironically used to beat up the nerds who are now helping them to make billions on Wall Street. And since they haven't matured at all since high school, they still occasionally run into the offices of their nerdy counterparts to give them an atomic wedgie or a toilet-watered wet willy, all while blasting speed metal that fucks up the nerd's number crunching, causing him to lose hours worth of work. Wall Street jocks who listened to rap in high school now only listen to chopper rap because its rapid-fire delivery can almost keep up with their maniacal racing thoughts. Just like how chopper rappers can spit out 500 words per minute without saying a fucking thing, these finance jocks make $500 per minute without actually doing a fucking thing. But the worst genre of music that Wall Street jocks listen to is speedcore. Don't know what that is? Speedcore is basically EDM on coke, crack, and meth, doing a shot of 5-hour energy in between each hit. Played at like 500 plus beats per minute, all speedcore songs sound like you're fast-forwarding through a techno song on an old Sony Walkman. It's dance music that no human could ever possibly dance to. Yet that doesn't stop these finance speed freaks from trying. Like Pharma execs, these fuckers are always moving. Not that they could stop if they wanted to, since they're tweaked out on so many damn uppers. Number 3, tech company founders and CEOs. College is all about partying, getting laid, and making powerful connections so that after you graduate, you can work your way up the social ladder without having to do any actual work. But instead of getting shit-faced with their peers, some computer nerds chose to spend every weekend at college coding away in their lonely dorm rooms. Some even dropped out to code full-time, and for a handful of them, it's paid off big time. There's only one type of college student who would rather spend his weekends buried deep in code than trying to bury himself balls deep inside some sexy, drunk co-ed at a party. Nerds, aka geeks, aka dorks. Unsurprisingly, these guys mostly listen to nerd rock, aka geek rock, aka dork rock. Nerd rock, on the surface, sounds like any other rock. But instead of singing about cool shit like flying high on drugs or wanting to fuck your teacher, nerd rock songs are about stuff like playing Dungeons and Dragons in your garage or imagining what it might be like to be a nightlight. While bands that sing about this kind of stuff might be giants, they're definitely nerds. And so are the tech company founders who listen to them. But these ultra-successful billionaire nerds don't care what you or I think about them. Sure, we can still call them losers and dorks, but they can't hear us over the sound of their $500 million yacht's roaring diesel engine, nor can they hear the sound of baby dolphins getting ground up by the engine's propeller, or endangered whales choking to death on the diesel engine's exhaust. But even if they could, they wouldn't care. These filthy rich geeks don't care about anything that isn't the subject matter of nerd rock songs. They make so much fucking money, they don't have to care. These big tech founders can buy almost anything, allowing them to stay focused on their nerdly pursuits. It's like some kind of nerd loophole where they get to have their cake and eat it too. Almost all these dorks are scrawny weaklings who couldn't hurt a fly with a shotgun. But instead of hitting the gym hard, eating shitloads of protein, and getting their asses kicked night after night at jiu-jitsu like the rest of us, they can just hire a team of ex-Navy SEALs to follow them around everywhere they go. And instead of developing social skills, learning how to effectively flirt with women, these wealthy nerds can just buy a trophy wife. Or, in some cases, lease one with a massive balloon payment at the end. Sucker. Either way, they still have plenty of time to nerd out, including rocking out to nerd rock. But the one thing these tech nerds can never buy is coolness. No matter how much money they have, they'll never not be nerds, just like nerd rock will never be cool. Number 4. Record label execs. You'd think that the people at the highest level of record companies would listen to good, modern music. But you'd be wrong. They listen to the exact opposite. Bad, outdated music. While A&Rs, the people at record labels who scout and sign new talent, keep their fingers on the pulse of what's hot right now, executives at the highest levels keep their fingers up their asses and only listen to what was hot 20 plus years ago. That's because they're still dreaming of the good old days, back before MP3s and streaming music were a thing. Back when record labels had every aspiring musician bent over a barrel because getting a record deal was the only way to get your music heard. But the times, they are a-changin'. Musicians no longer have to get ass-fucked by labels to blow up. Nowadays, all it takes is one viral TikTok video. Which is why record execs hate all modern music. They're stuck in the past, listening only to music that had to get through their gatekeeping to get to the top. If a record exec ever found a genie in a bottle, he'd be wishing he was living La Vida Loca back in the 90s when people still bought cassettes and CDs. But instead of living La Vida Moderna, record execs are stuck in the past, getting jiggy with songs that weren't good then and sure as fuck ain't good now. Number 5. Senators and congressmen. Billionaires in the private sector aren't the only elites who listen to shitty music. There are plenty of millionaires in the government that do too. I'm talking about senators and congressmen. By making promises they have no intention of keeping, relentlessly talking shit about their opponents, and spending millions of dollars on ads, these people convinced you to vote them into office. And the second you did was the second they stopped caring about you. Nah, I'm just kidding. They never cared about you. All they care about is getting and maintaining power. Well, that and the massive donations they get from all the other assholes on our list. While no elected official gives a shit about you or me, we do care about what shitty music they're listening to. But senators and congressmen listen to different genres. And since out of all our groups, this is the only one that has any women in it, I'll break it down even further by gender, of which there are definitely only 2. In the House and Senate. That I know of. Men in the House of Representatives listen to a lot of power pop. That's because this subgenre has lots of the 2 things that congressmen crave, power and popularity. And it's not even remotely controversial, which they like. It's hard enough keeping all the hookers and lobbyist handouts from the public and keeping their wives from finding out about their mistresses without having to worry about their musical tastes drawing controversy. So they play it safe by listening to music that hasn't been controversial in decades, if ever, so they can focus on doing what they all have a knack for, spending taxpayer dollars on cheap tricks. Congresswomen also listen to pop music because, let's be real, it's all one big popularity contest. But these ladies don't listen to power pop like their male counterparts, who outnumber them 3-1. These chicks only listen to dance pop. It's a subgenre that's lighthearted, unsophisticated, and easy to understand, just like them. And its danceable rhythm makes it easy for them to dance around important issues so they can focus on more important things like growing their clothing brands. Men in the Senate only listen to heartland rock, not because they actually enjoy it, but because they want you to see them listening to it so that you'll think they're an average, everyday, down-home dude just like you. So, they blast Born in the USA at every single one of their campaign rallies. But, since they've never actually read the lyrics to Born in the USA, just like they've never actually read any of the bills they've signed into law, they don't know that the song is actually about how much the country sucks because it's been fucked up by politicians just like them. Just like they can't figure out why the public's trust in them is free falling. Women in the Senate listen to any genre that has alternative or independent in the name, like alternative rock, indie pop, etc. That's because these ladies like to think of themselves as an alternative to the big bad patriarchy, even though every single one of them belongs to the same 2 political parties as their evil male counterparts. In reality, there's nothing independent about these chicks. Actually, I take that back. Their voting records are definitely independent from the desires of their constituents, yet they line up perfectly with the voting records of their male counterparts, which happen to line up perfectly with the desires of Big Pharma, Wall Street, Big Tech, and other big donors. What a coincidence. Look, I'm all for equality. I am. So I'm happy to see that women in power are equally as greedy and corruptible as their male counterparts. There's no doubt in my mind that when we eventually elect a woman into the presidency, she'll equally suck as badly as even the suckiest of male presidents. But while we've got a 46 dudes in a row streak going on, let's see what Mr. President himself is listening to. Number 6. President of the United States of America. The president doesn't listen to music nearly as often as everyone else on this list. Not because he's too busy doing important presidential stuff, but because he's so fucking old, it's a miracle he can hear anything at all. He has to crank his hearing aid up to 11 just to hear his political aides repeatedly remind him that it's not okay to use the word Negro in today's world like it was 100 years ago back when he was young. Most adults tend to listen to music that was popular during their youth, and the president is no exception. And that's why he exclusively listens to big band music. It reminds him of a simpler time. A time when Nazi wasn't something you called people on the internet that you disagree with, but a group of actual evil Germans trying to take over the world. Big band music sounds cool. Not the music itself, but the image the name conjures in the mind. When I think big band, I think of rock bands that don't just have a guitar, bass, drums, and singer, but also keyboards, trumpets, saxophone, and other horns. That's my idea of a big band, but the big bands the president listens to are made up basically of just a bunch of horns. It's basically my idea, minus all the cool instruments, which explains why big band music sucks big time. But the president doesn't care what you, me, or anyone else thinks about him, his politics, or the music he listens to. The only thing he cares about is the absorbency of his adult diapers and how much time is left before he can take his afternoon nap. Just like we're all curious how much time that fossil has left before he's replaced by some other elderly dude that should have retired decades ago. Out with the old, in with the old. And now, you know what the elites are listening to. They might have a hell of a lot more money and power than you, but they don't have better taste in music. They like shitty music just as much as you.
You're so annoying.
If you need some new shitty music to listen to, click on the link in the description or search for this guy on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever else you usually listen to shitty music.